Hi and welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be looking at how to deploy a static website on Nginx. Nginx is a high performance open source web server and reverse proxy server which is designed for speed, scalability, and efficient handling of HTTP and other network protocols. In this video, we are going to illustrate how to install Nginx as a web server, upload a static website. We are also going to configure a domain name. We will configure the DNS records for the said domain name and also install the free SSL certificate. So for the success of this video, we require access to a VPS. That is a virtual private server where we are going to set everything up. So in this case, you may have access to a VPS from whichever provider or have access to an AWS EC2 instance. Any of those will do, all right? So we need to have an IP address, we need to have a username, and we also need to have the password to that server. So with these three, and of course, this user should also have the necessary privileges on that server, we are good to go. So once you confirm you have the three elements, all you need to do is to have SSH, then key in your username here at your IP here. All right. Then once you press on enter, you'll be prompted to key in your password. So in my case, I have provisioned an EC2 instance on AWS and I'll be accessing it using my terminal here. All right. All I need is to type in SSH. I have -I, so I'll be using the key pair that I downloaded. I have it with that name, nginx web.pem. Then I'll have Ubuntu because that is the username I'm currently using, and I'll paste in the IP of that instance. Once I have that, just press enter. Then I'll be requested to confirm. Then I'll just type in yes, and I'll be logged in. So in your case, just use the credentials that you have in this section, and you should be able to access your server. All right, so once we have the access, I'll clear my screen here and have it on top. Now that we have the access, I'll be installing the Nginx web server here and also be uploading my website files in here. All right, so in here, this is the look and feel of the template that I'll be uploading. It's a static website with some few pages here and there. And this is what we expect to have on our server. And the domain name that I'll be using for this case, it's not reachable at the moment, and the IP we'll be using for this illustration. So at the end of this video, we expect to have this website showing on this IP and on this domain. All right, so the first thing that we are going to do after having gotten the access, we need to install Nginx on our server. All right, so the first thing before we start installing, we need to update our package repository, and the way to do that, we have sudo apt update. Right, once our package repository has been updated, we then need to install Nginx, and the way to install Nginx, we have sudo apt install Nginx. Then we might be prompted to type in yes, so we can just type in -y. Press enter and give it time. All right, and within a few seconds, Nginx has been installed. So the next thing is to start the Nginx service, right? Then the next command that we need to have is to enable Nginx. So what this one does is that it ensures that whenever our server reboots, the Nginx service is started at the same time. All right, so press enter. Once we have that, then we can go back to our browser and check if we are able to see the Nginx default page. And there we go. There's a confirmation that Nginx has properly been installed. All right, we are going to look at what the domain name has for us. All right, so the next thing, once we confirm that Nginx has been installed, it's worth mentioning the default location where Nginx stores its files. That is the file that we are seeing here. This is the default page, and we should be able to appreciate the location where this file is located. So if we navigate to var www then html ls, so this is the file that we are seeing here on the browser. So in here we can try to create our custom file, and we are going to do that by, let us use touch, and we have index.html, right? We need sudo here. In case you are logged in as a root, this should work. So in my case, since I'm logged in as Ubuntu, let me have sudo there, right? If I ls, I have my file here. So let me remove this file here. And the way to remove a file, we have rm, press enter. If we ls, we see the file has been removed. So back to the browser, if I reload this, should show blank. So in here, so I need to have sudo nano index.html. In here I can just have h1, talk about hello world. All right, once I have that, press Ctrl X, Y, and enter to save. Back to our browser, reload. All right, we see we have hello world. All right, so should we press our website files here, then that is what we should see on the browser, right? So we need now to configure our server so that we are able to upload multiple websites. Because for instance, if we have multiple websites, we would need to create some more folders and also try to play around with the configurations. So in that case, I'll be creating a new folder that will act as the root folder for this domain name here, right? So the way to do that, in whichever location that I'm in, I'll have sudo, I'll make directory, and I'll do that using that tag. Then I'll have it in var www. So instead of having HTML, I'll have my domain name in there. Press enter. Alternatively, I would have navigated to var www. I press enter. If I erase in here, I'll see HTML. So in here, I could have simply have make directory, then paste in my domain name. So it's still the same to create this folder. So this is where I'll be uploading my website files. All right, so once we have that, the next thing will be now to upload my website files. So let me navigate to my folder here. All right, so this is my folder and it doesn't have any files. So I want to upload the files for this website. All right, so and the way to do that, we have quite a number of ways that we can do that. I'll be using the SCP method. All right, so I'll have top here. So in here, these are the website files. All right, so to make it easier for us, I need to upload the compressed file. All right, so in case your files are in this form, you can simply select this and just compress. All right, then create an archive of that. So in my case, I'll be uploading this zip file, right? So I can simply open terminal here, no harm. So for those on AWS, we can simply have SCP, then we need to pass in the location of our .pem file, right? So this should be in my downloads, should be nginx web.pem. Then we need to mention the name of the file that we want to move to our server. That is this. So let me just rename this file so that it becomes easy for us to reference the file. let me just have that.zip, right? So in here, I just type in the first letter and press on tab to complete because I'm in the same location. Then I need to mention the server. So in this case, I'll be using my Ubuntu username to access the EC2 instance at the IP. So I can simply fetch my IP here. Then I need to specify the location. That is the location that I need to copy this zip file, right? So remember, I want to copy it in, let me just come here. Let me have pwd to show the present working directory. So remember we said this is the root directory of our application. So I need to copy this and paste in that, all right? But the question is, will it work, right? So once you have that, that is we have SCP, we have referenced the location of the PEM file, then the file that we need to move, then we need to mention the username to our server at IP, then mention the location where we need to move this file, right? So once we have that, press on enter. All right, so we see permission denied. So in my case, having passed in the PEM file, I wasn't required to input the password. So in your case, when doing that using a different server other than one using the .pem file, you need to skip this section, or you need it to have SCP, then mention the file name, then mention the username to the server, the IP of the server, and the location. All right. So in this case, permission is denied. This is because the current user does not own the current location. All right. And the way to prove that, let's go back to the server, press on Q to move out of the top. Let me just clear the screen. Let me move back one step and I'll check by using ls-la, press enter, and we see that this folder is owned by the root user. All right, so that's why we are not able to push the file here. So usually we may change the ownership of this directory here by changing it to the current user, but that is not usually the best approach because there are configurations that may require that this directory be owned by the root, and changing it to the current owner might cause issues. So to prevent such issues from happening, let us use an alternative method. All right. So the current user, in my case, let me do this and do that. Then let me do home. Right. So at home, we have Ubuntu folder, and this is the home folder of the current user. So the current user has access to this directory here. So if by any chance we push the file to this folder, then we are going to have it as a success because this user has permissions to execute anything on the home Ubuntu folder. So that is the best approach, all right? So let me have that as top, then come back to our folder here. Or I need to have, instead of this, I'll first push our file in this location, that is home Ubuntu. All right, press enter. All right, and we see our file has been pushed to the server. So this basically copies the file from my local machine to the server and the location that I specified here. All right, so for now I do not need this terminal again. Let me work with what we have here. All right, so back to our server here. Let me navigate back to home Ubuntu. If we ls, we see we have a file. This is the file that I just copied from our local machine. So we need to have sudo. Let me move this file from the current folder, and I want to move it to var www and detect. So in here, I'm able to use sudo so that I now gain the access to this folder. So once we have that, press enter, right? Then let me navigate to the said folder. We have var, we have www, we have detect, right? Let me ls. All right, so the next thing, I need to unzip this file, and the way to do that, I need to have unzip, unzip, then I mention the file name. Right, we see unzip is not installed yet, so I'll install unzip using this command. All right, then let me have that. All right, permission denied, so I need to have sudo unzip, then the file name. Right, if IRS, we see that our files are now inside the directory named Nginx HTML. All right, but remember, I want this to be our root directory. So I need the files in here moved to the current directory. If IRS Instance, so I see the files in here. So all I need to have is move, mention the directory name, mention a star there, space, dot. So this dot simply means just move whatever is inside this directory to the current directory that I'm in, right? Press enter. So permission issues, all right. If IRS, we see our files in here. All right, now that our files are in here, are we able to access that on our browser? Let us try. All right, not yet. So we need to create another configuration to help us achieve that. And the way to do that, back to our server. So I'll type in that sudo nano, then we have the location under etc Nginx sites available. Then in here we need to mention the name of the file that we want to create to hold our configurations. So I'll name it. So that is the name that I'll give to the file that I want to store the configuration for our website. Once you do that, just press enter and paste in the code in here. This is to listen to port 80. Then for the server name in here, we need to enter our domain name, then the www of that domain. Remember, leaving out www in case you access that said domain name using www and you did not include it here, then it will not be reachable. Right? Then for the root, we need to mention the location of our root folder. So remember, in this demonstration, this is our root directory. So in your case, just set the root directory as required. All right. So in case I want to access the website using the IP, I need to include my IP here. All right. So for now, let me just leave it. We are going to come back here. So just type in Control X, yes, and confirm save. Once we do that, we need to link our configuration to the Nginx sites enabled directory. Remember, these are some custom configurations that we have created for the Nginx web server to Rocket. So for it to be effective, we need to create a link with the default sites enabled directory. And the way to do that, this is the way to do it. So we have to mention, so we have sudo ln -s, then the location of our file. So our file, remember, we created it at this path, right? Then the next thing that we need to mention, we have etc Nginx, then sites enabled. Once we have that, press enter, right? Then the next thing is to do a check if the current configurations that we have added are okay in terms of the syntax. So we need to do such a check so that in case the syntax is not okay, we rectify before restarting the web server. So that's the command. And getting this confirms to us that the syntax is in order. So the next thing is to restart the web server. So we have system ctl, we have to restart Nginx. All right, so once we do that, then let's go back to the browser. In this case, let me reload this. So this doesn't work. So the IP doesn't work because we did not include it in the configuration. So let me just copy this back to the server, edit this, add it in here, X, Y, and enter to exit. Then let us restart Nginx. All right, once restarted, back to the browser, press on that, and we see that the website is now accessible using the IP. So if we go to about services, contact us, and see we are good to go. Before trying to access it on the domain name, there is something we need to mention about the DNS of this domain name. So you need to be aware of where you are managing the DNS for your domain name. So I'm managing the DNS for this domain name on cPanel. So the thing is, so just access the dashboard where you are managing the DNS records for this domain name and update the A record. So in my case, I'm managing it on cPanel. I'll just log in and access Zone Editor. I have a few domains here, so let me just click on Manage alongside the domain that. So in here, I need to identify the domain name and the A record. So there's the A record that I need to change. All right. So I had already changed this prior to recording of this session. So just change the IP of your domain name to point to this. Then the other key record you need to be aware of is the www of your domain name. So that's a CNAME. So the www should point back to the domain name. All right. So in case you have any other DNS manager, ensure to set up the two records. That is the A record and the C name. So in case you would want to use a platform like Cloudflare, check out the video attached above. All right. So once you set up the DNS, then you can be free to test if the domain name is able to display our website here. So let me reload, and we see it's not able to connect. So the reason why it's not able to connect, if we check, it's trying to access it on HTTPS. But if I remove that, reload, it will still redirect to HTTPS. So let me try accessing that on an incognito tab. So let me try that. Then let me confirm continue to site. And we see we are able to access the website using the domain name. All right. Go to About Us, Services, and Contact Us. All right. The next thing that we need to do is now to configure SSL for this domain name. Right? Remember, we need to secure this domain name using an SSL certificate so that even under this page, we are able to access it using the HTTPS. All right? So back to our server. We have been logged out. So let me open another session. So let me have SSH. All right. I now need to install the package that are necessary in configuring the free SSL certificate. So the command to install the necessary uh, uh, dependencies, we have certbot, we have Python 3 certbot, Nginx. All right. So once we have that, press enter. All right. Once that is done, clear the screen. So we now execute a command that will install SSL certificate on our domain name. All right. So let me copy this domain name here. All right, so the command to do that. So we have type in sudo certbot, then we call nginx, then we have -d for domain name, then in here paste in your domain, then let's have another domain, and in here we are going to have www.domain. All right, so once we have this, then we are good to go. Just press enter and follow the prompts. So in this case, let me do this. So enter email address, we have admin, enter, right? Terms and conditions, let me confirm yes, enter. So in here, you can choose to give them permission to send you news and campaigns or decline. So let me just have yes. In your case, you can have no, no harm. All right, and within no time, we see a success message here that our SSL has been installed. All right, so the next thing, let me just have top here so that we do not get logged out. back to our browser. Let me reload this, and we see we now have access to our web application. So if we come and inspect here, we see that SSL has been set up. All right. So we may not want users to be able to access our web application using the IP, right? We may want that whenever a user visits our website using the IP, we would want them to be redirected to the domain name, because again, the IP, we are not able to secure this IP using an SSL certificate. So for some reason, we may want to redirect the users here. So in that case, let's go back to the server to see how to achieve that. So in here, I need to have sudo detect. All right, so in here, we need to add some few lines. Remember, this is the configuration file that we created, but after installing the SSL certificate, we see that we have some other lines of code that have been added. All right, they are directives on where the SSL certificates have been stored. We have these parts here, and we also have the directive to redirect user. Whenever they visit the HTTP form of the domain name, they need to be redirected to HTTPS. Before we continue, we can do a test. So let me just reload, and we see that we have been redirected to HTTPS. So that is the work of the code that you see here. All right, so we are still going to edit this file, and we will add some directives here. All right, so let me go back here, fetch the IP. Right, so in here I need to mention the IP server name, then input your IP here. Then in here, in this next line here, we need to import our domain name. Once you have that, press X, Y, enter. Then restart Nginx. Let's have top. Back to our browser. Let's try to reload. And we see we have been automatically redirected to our domain name. So that takes care of that. Before we conclude, you may face permission related issues, right? Whereby you have set up everything, but still your website is not able to be shown on visiting your domain name or your IP address. So that could be as a result of permission issues, right? So remember, we have our directory here, right? That is var www technologies. So Nginx may not be able to read the files in here, and as a result, you may not be able to access the website. So to rectify such, should it happen, you need to execute this command where we change the ownership of the said directory to, all right. So what this command does is that it changes the ownership of the current directory from the root, because as we had previously seen, from root to the current user. This is a Linux command showing the user and the group. So remember, if you use this $sign plus this is a variable denoting the current user, and the current user in my case is Ubuntu. All right, but in this case, since we are able to access our web application, then we do not need to change the ownership of that directory. All right, then the next thing is, should you have multiple domain names that you want to configure, then just follow the same procedure as we have done configuring for this particular domain name. That is creating a new path, creating a new configuration file, adding the configurations for the new domain name, and setting up everything as we did for this domain name here. And at the end of it, you will have your 2 domains or 3 applications running on the same server. And that's it. Attached to this video is the link to a proc website where you can be able to fetch these commands and be able to have a clear view of it all. I believe this video has been helpful. If you confirm that, please give it a thumbs up, drop your comment in the comment section below, share it with your network, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you and goodbye.